Hey, it's Colin Seuss again, and welcome to another video on lo-fi prototyping. Today I'm going to walk you through getting a game object database that is up on Google Drive into nanDECK, which is a desktop publishing app that's free that then integrates into Tabletop Simulator. If you haven't seen my video on version control on Google Drive, I would recommend that you go watch that. And so without further ado, let's jump in. This is nanDECK. It's free, it's powerful, it's lovely. You can download it, and I recommend that you do. It has this space here where you can handle things in code, and it's got a way to preview the cards, which can be like a game board or an actual deck of cards, anything in there. Supposedly it has a way to make dice too, which I think is really awesome if you want to do custom dice. The last thing it's got is a visual editor, which, hey, that's cool. Did I mention that nanDECK is free? Um, Not sure what that is. Oh, that's probably failing out because I don't have anything tacked onto this link. So nanDECK has, let's fix that. nanDECK has the ability to work with linked data, as in data you've got in a file somewhere else that you would like to have nanDECK use. Right now there's no linked data. So what I want to link this to is my game object database out here on Google Drive, and here it is. Now, for anybody who hasn't run into a game object database before, here's a quick review. It's just a way of handling, what pieces you have for the game and some of their attributes, any specials they've got, and this image path we'll talk about in just a minute. But that's the sort of thing that lives inside of a game object database. And game object database initialized is God, God. So when you hear me talk about the God, that's what I'm talking about. So one of the things that nanDECK needs to get programmatic access is it needs this file to be shared. So when you come out here, you say, I want to share this. You can't give nanDECK the link. So you have to change this to be anyone with the link. Not restricted, but anyone with the link. And then you can copy this link and you say done. And we should be good for that part. Let's head back to nanDECK. Now, nanDECK gets a little bit tricky with the link. The part that you need is actually this part right here. I'm going to go double check that. Yeah, so the part that you need is this section here. This huge string of nonsense characters. And you paste that right there, and then you don't need this anymore. And now that that's there, you can come down here and say linked data, and it shows you this blurb, and you can click on it, and all of a sudden here you are. So now we know that nanDECK has access to this data, which means that nanDECK can start calling on this data and using it to populate data when it goes to create the cards that we're going to use it to make in just a minute. Now, one of the things that we would like to do here is have images on our cards. However, I don't have any right now in the folder that I'm going to use to have my images. So that's kind of a problem. Now, nanDECK is pretty clever. If you come over here and you go to the visual editor, it will actually create placeholder images at these paths. Now, if you're wondering where did it get those paths, well, this is a variable, and what it's calling is from the linked data, which is our game object database, and over here is the image path, and it contains these paths. Now, the question that comes up next is, if we don't want to use placeholders, how do we get the real images? Because I don't want to have to keep like downloading everything manually every time the artist checks in a change. Well, this is why we have up on Drive a creative folder, and inside of that there's a graphic folder which contains all of these cool JPEGs and PNGs. That's your technical artist who should be punished for having multiple image formats in here. You should go talk to them and tell them that they need to tidy that up. So let's take a look at how to get nanDECK to be smart enough to download these things automatically when it doesn't have them. So we would ideally like to have nanDECK pull our graphics from Drive and dump them all into this particular subdirectory so that we can later use them, or nanDECK itself can use them, to build out whatever it is that we're having nanDECK generate. This is one of the times where this is really temperamental. So what you have to do is, like I was talking about earlier, you come up to the subdirectory level here and you share that out. That prevents you from having to go in and share every single image. Now, once you've shared it out, which you can tell because it's got this little person-y symbol, you come in and you check out, okay, here are all my images. And what you've got to do is you've got to get the UUID, the Universal Unique Identifier, which you can do by saying get the link, and it's this part right here. And you've got to capture all of it and nothing else, or else this stuff doesn't work right. So once you've got that captured, you can come into your GOD, your game object database, and you can do something like what I have done up here, which is a little bit messy. So let me break this down. nanDECK has a very specific way that it has to deal with this download. I actually had to talk with Nand and have him help me figure it out. But you start with this prefix, and then you put in the UUID, and then you put in this suffix. Now, if you just have all this written out, it'll work. The reason why we're putting it into the GOD is so that we can use it as a variable later on, which is important. So you see here, since this one doesn't have that middle section, it's really short. This one's got the UUID, so it's got the whole world, if you will, in its hand. One thing you need to know is that nanDECK can't handle links. It can't handle things that are hyperlinks. So what you got to do is come in here, select everything, right click, and say remove link. And you got to do that over here too, or it'll, fail to do what we need it to do. I'm going to pause the video again and get the rest of these links in so that we can see more. Okay, that's all sorted out. Now let's look at the game object database here for a second. If you remember the image path, that's where on the local hard disk this is moving things to. And this is just doing another concatenate, right? Image prefix, that's the path, and then the image name is the file name, and it all collapses down into an image path. Then we look at the download, which is the concatenation of the prefix, the universally unique identifier, and the download suffix, and that creates this big string right here. So the things to remember for the next step are the download path and the image path. And let's go back to nanDECK real quick. So link, which has to be like the first thing in there, or else it doesn't work. So this is the UUID of the game object database up on Google Cloud. And this right here is probably the first time we've really worked with this explicitly. So download will check for local copies of images. If there is no local copy of an image for nanDECK to use, it will go to the specified download path and then like a URL, and then it'll put it where you tell it to put it. You can see down here, nanDECK is smart enough to contextually tell you the format down here of whatever command you're on or were last on. So download, it says URL and then file name. So what we're doing here is this download path and this image path are, if we look in the linked data, which is the same file, right? The image path is this right here, so that's where it's going to put that on our hard drive, and then the download path is this thing that we just worked on here. So if that works, then nanDECK will connect to the God and then check for local images. When it doesn't find them, it's going to go look at the download path in the God, and it's going to, if it can access that image, download it to the hard drive that's listed in the image path column of the God. So we're going to click Validate Deck, and it's going to go try to do that. So here it does some stuff, and let's go check our formerly empty directory. Oh, you can see it's pulling them in right now. This is one of the newest and coolest things that nanDECK can do. Now I'm going to get us started up with the next piece, which, now that we've managed to connect the game object database over to nanDECK, now we need to get nanDECK to be able to move stuff up to Tabletop Simulator. And to do that, I'm just going to poke around and do some stuff in nanDECK's visual editor. Check this out. Yeah. Spend your time in here, less in the code. This lets you get super specific, and you can make amazing things if you're writing it out in the code. But when you're doing the layout and whatnot, oh my God, use this. Okay, I'm going to pause and come back in a minute. All right, so let's bring this in for a close. So I've gone in, I've used the visual editor here to set things up correctly, and yeah, I don't need to say that. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to validate the deck, and then I'm going to say build the deck, and it's going to go do that. Now, here's a very important thing when you're doing Tabletop Simulator stuff. You need to say down here, display. This thing right here is the thing that does the magic. Also, if you have something that's not showing up in the visual editor, make sure that this visual tag is above the thing that you're like missing. The visual editor only starts picking things up after that tag. Okay, so this should be built. And I've also done a back just for fun. You'll notice here there's no display anything there. It's just save, and it's saving just a single card. The reason for that is Tabletop Simulator doesn't slice the cards, if that makes sense. Like, here, let's go check out what this thing produced. So, when you do this, what you end up with is a file that looks like this. So you've got your cards that Tabletop Simulator will slice in equal portions according to your specification when you go to import them. But this back, it just needs one back. So let me show you how that gets done. So you got Tabletop Simulator, you're running, you're having a good time. You go to Objects, and then you go to Components, and here I go to Cards, and I want a custom deck. I just drag that down. Now I've already got this set right. This is 5 cards wide, 3 cards tall, and I'm only importing a total of 15 cards. But I still need to get the face, which is this right here, All Souls Night. Now this is an important piece. If you don't upload this to the Steam cloud, you can't do it in multiplayer. So you always want to do this up there. I don't know why this thing is freaking out on me right now. I'll have to look into that later. Here's the back. Yep, send it up to the cloud. Yep, upload. So we've set the face, we've set the back, we've got this default type of deck, we've got the width configured correctly and the height, so the cards will be sliced out correctly, and we've set the number to be correct. So now we click import, and we are now the proud owners of a new, in this case, deck of cards. Now, I have, so this, by the way, this is there are only 15 cards, but because it's working in a square, you end up with this extra one. Now, I've actually put in an error here intentionally. Oh, also, this I was pretty pleased with, sneaking in a build in there. So see this A that's right there? That's, so you make this nice stable build for playtesting, but you need to iterate on it for some reason, which an example I'm about to show you. Then you can just iterate that on these cards, and you can save the decks for later, so that when you're looking back at your playtest, you just make a note. You're like, oh yeah, we partway through we realized something was broken, so we made a fix, and you can find the deck for that is whatever it is, B. In this case, this is the error that I intentionally made. The mortal card here has a defense of 240, which is completely out of proportion for anything else. So maybe I fat fingered it or what have you. Either way, this card can't be playtested. You can either try to hold that in your brain, or you can just go back to your too many windows are open, go back to your game object database. Ah, there it is. So we're actually going to drop this to 24. Pro tip, these numbers are still completely out of whack and should not be allowed ever, but that's for another day. So now we can come back to nanDECK, and we don't actually need to spin up a new back because we didn't change anything there, but we do need to spin up a new front side. Now, in here, I put a patch. Let's see, there it is. So text right here at the very end, it says build, blah, 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 blah. Instead of A, I'm going to put down B. And then I may actually just go ahead and do B right there as well, so that I can save the original deck we were working with. So I revalidate it, I rebuild it, and now let's go back to Tabletop Simulator. We're going to get rid of all these by highlighting them and just pressing delete. Then we're going to come to Objects again, back to Components, Cards, Custom Deck, This sticks around, which is really nice. Here we go, All Souls Night B. Yep, we got to move it to the cloud. Got to come in here and grab the back. Move it to the cloud again as well. This right here would be unique backs. Like if you had, I don't know, transforming werewolves or something like that, you could tie this, you could tie it correctly to do something cool like that. Okay, so here we go. Let's flip it. Let's toss it and make sure that make sure that's stuck. Would have been nice. Okay, there it is. Mortal 24. Boom. So that is why creating a pipeline like this is so important for this process, because you can iterate that fast. There are other things that you can do that are more in depth, like for instance, you can save and load. So like I can save a game right now. And I can, call it All Souls Night 01. And supposedly I can come back and reload that. Now, I have yet to get that to work correctly on a network game, but you can also save an object. These are actually leftovers from my Monopoly thing, but let's see. I'll have to remember how to do this. There it is. Save object. Root folder. All Souls Night 01. Save it. So once that is saved, you can then come back up and go to Save Objects and pull that right there. Now, in this case, I think it just grabbed that one. It just grabbed what was left in this stack. So if you wanted to pull the custom deck down while everything was stacked up, you would just do that same thing. You just right-click and say Save Object, and now you can come back in and reload that anytime. So that is how you get stuff from Google Drive in your game operations database with your images up on Drive, so you can share everything amongst your entire team. You can get that from there to nanDECK into Tabletop Simulator. Setting up the initial pipeline takes a while, especially with like getting the layout kind of right. But really, it pays off so much because you can iterate on this so fast. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope you find that useful. I'm going to follow up on this one with doing some more stuff, getting Tabletop Simulator to actually integrate with something called the Game Crafter, and there's some tricks you can use also with Photoshop. So hopefully I'll get that out in the next week or two, and you can check those out as well. All right, thank you so much.